What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 260 of Hashtag AskGSM here today for November 21st, 2018. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. And as always, if you guys want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave your question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So, of course, on the eve of Thanksgiving, we're talking all about the events of the past week in WWE, including Survivor Series, Takeover, Raw, Smackdown. Quite the newsworthy week, to say the least, as was last week, but a lot to break down here from Takeover and Survivor Series. I will be going more in-depth with my thoughts on these shows. Just a bit of a cheap plug here for WrestleRant Radio on Thursday. Our very own Clark, who's been on the show before, at the editor Clark on the Twitter machine. He's joining me to help me break down Survivor Series, Takeover, and everything else going on in the world of wrestling right now. But without further ado, let's get started here with the first question from Facebook. FD, his question was, do you agree with my opinion that WWE lately has had bad luck in turning female superstars heel, like when Becky Lynch turned heel a few weeks ago, but she still got cheered by the fans for being the new Stone Cold Steve Austin with her promos? Or even Charlotte recently at Survivor Series when she turned heel on Ronda Rousey by assaulting her post-match, yet she still got the thank you Charlotte chants, although she was booed during her entrance at first. Was she, though? I don't think she was. I don't think she was. I know she was more beloved by the audience than Rousey was. Maybe I wasn't paying that close attention. I think Charlotte was being cheered anyway, because I think in that situation, since Becky wasn't there, they were going to cheer for Charlotte because they didn't want to cheer for Ronda Rousey. I think that has less to do with Rousey and more to do how over Becky was. But because they're not getting the match that they wanted, and of course Rousey wasn't the one that injured fucking Becky Lynch, it was Nia Jax, they were going to side with Charlotte over Rousey, which of course is weird. Like you said, it's very, very strange. So first they turned Becky heel, which they shouldn't have done. In retrospect, I think it worked out for the better, obviously, because Becky's had a new lease on life since turning heel back at SummerSlam. But they turn Becky, who is beloved, the crowd goes nuts for her. They boo Charlotte, who's supposed to be the babyface in the feud. Becky gets more and more over as a heel. Charlotte gets more and more hated as a babyface. And then Becky goes down with an injury. Charlotte, who was being booed anyway, starts to get cheered after turning heel. Even before she turned heel, though, she was being cheered during that match. They were Let's Go Charlotte chants over Let's Go Rousey, which again is surprising considering that Rousey has been beloved by the audience ever since she showed up in WWE earlier on this year. So it's very weird. I know fans sometimes like to go with, again, I am not the biggest Charlotte fan. I think she's great. I think, I'm very happy that she turned heel. I think that was a necessary change. But I'm not going to start cheering her over Ronda Rousey. I mean, this is only me, of course. This is all subjective. But I did find it weird because people for months have spent all these months booing Charlotte when she's supposed to be the babyface in this feud with Becky Lynch. Now, all of a sudden, because she's facing Rousey, who wasn't hated until Sunday, they start cheering her. So again, it makes very little sense. I don't know what the hell's going on here. I'm very confused. WWE did not exactly clear things up all too well on Tuesday when Charlotte came out. She cut a heel-like promo. It certainly sounded like she was turning heel with what she had to say during her promo on Tuesday. And then the Iconics came out, and she beat both the Iconics in back-to-back matches. So the Iconics are heels, but we're supposed to boo Charlotte. It makes absolutely no sense. So I don't know what they're going for here, but it was very weird. So yeah, it's I don't know if it has less to do with bad luck than it does. I don't even know. I don't even really know. I mean, Becky has gotten herself over as this cult favorite right now as a heel. I think they would have to turn her babyface when she comes back. I'm not saying change the character, go back to being the fun-loving Becky Lynch that she was before she turned heel prior to SummerSlam, but they would have to position her as a babyface on the show. She is just so fucking over right now. How could you not? And also at the same time, it's like Charlotte can play that heel. So maybe when Becky comes back, they'll start to boost Charlotte more. I don't know what's going on here. I really don't. I think Charlotte's better off in the heel role, but, I mean, she was a heel a couple years ago, and they booed her then. I mean, she does it so well, she should be able to get people to boo her more than what she got at Survivor Series and on Tuesday's Smackdown. Maybe she's still a babyface. Maybe she just snapped, and she did it because she hates Rousey or hates Raw, whatever. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. I really don't. I thought she was a heel. It doesn't really, I mean, her promo made it seem like she was a heel, but not her actions. Like, she didn't really crap all over the fans during her promo on Tuesday SmackDown. She did on Twitter. She didn't during her promo. So again, I'm not really sure what to think here. Charlotte is way better off as a heel. Becky should be like the Stone Cold-esque babyface when she gets back. With Rousey, she should be a babyface for now. For everyone saying, oh, Rousey got booed at the end of Survivor Series, she should be turning heel. You can't turn everyone fucking heel. You can't. Because then they start getting cheered, so what's the point? You know what I'm saying? Like, with Becky, like, they didn't need to turn her heel. They really did not, because she was over anyway as a babyface. Charlotte, they needed to turn heel, but they're going to start cheering her now. But this is the whole fucking Roman Reigns syndrome, where if they turn the guy heel, which they should, I mean, that's the exception, but if they turn the guy heel, they would start cheering him every single week. So, like with Rousey, turning her heel right now is not the answer. You did that with Charlotte. You can't do that with everyone just to get them cheered more. I mean, again, they booed them as a babyface for a reason. Charlotte, they booed for a reason. Ronda Rousey, I have no fucking clue why they're booing her. She has no reason to be booed right now. She has come so far in such a short period of time, both in the ring, on the mic. She's not exactly incredibly comfortable on the mic when it comes to her promos, but by and large, she does fairly well with the material they give her, which is saying something, because a lot of the material they give her to work with is absolutely atrocious on the microphone. That being said, though, I mean, she was beloved like a week or two before that when she came out on Raw, so what made Sunday that much different? I mean, they kind of rebounded. They kind of bounced back on Monday's Raw when she squashed Mickie James and came across like a fighting champion, and that's great and all, but I hope it sticks and they don't start booing Rousey for no real reason. I could see the reason why they might have booed her when she first showed up. They're not really sure if she has what it takes, or she's not like the hardcore wrestling fan, whatever the fuck what she was, but whatever. And then she kind of won over people with her performance at WrestleMania. What has changed? If anything, she should be more over than she was back then, because, I mean, I'm not saying cheer for Ronda. I'm just because they don't like Becky, they're going to start booing Ronda. Like, that doesn't, I mean, because they do like Becky, they're going to start booing Ronda. That makes no sense to me. It really doesn't. Like, you can side with Becky over Ronda, but that doesn't mean you have to boo Ronda. You know what I mean? It's just a very weird dynamic. And the answer is not turning her heel. Absolutely not. At least not right now. You can't turn everyone fucking heel. It's stupid. Because then they're going to start going back to cheering her, which, again, at that point, why not just make her a babyface? You know what? It just makes no sense. FD's second question here. What do you think is the logic behind the WWE bookers deciding to make WWE Raw the A show with a clean 6-0 sweep against SmackDown Live? Well, if you don't count the pre-show tag team Survivor Series match, which SmackDown Live won, so that's not really a sweep in my books. Even though we have seen it from the product, as we've seen from the product, Raw does not feel like the A show quality-wise, like with what happened on Monday. I don't know. I mean, Raw in their books, no matter how bad it may get, and it's pretty bad right now. Raw this week sucked. Raw for the last couple of months has sucked. Really, ever since the Superstar Shakeup has sucked. Because SmackDown has the much better roster, a superior roster to Raw. Despite that, they position Raw as the A show. They always have, they currently do, they always will. They always will. Stephanie went out of her way on Monday's Raw, and the commentators said the same thing. They said all week leading up to Survivor Series that Raw had a 2-0 advantage over SmackDown, which wasn't exactly true. They won last year. But I think the first year, SmackDown, I don't know how many more matches they won than Raw, but I do know they won that big like multi-man match, like the big men's single or the men's elimination tag team match. They won that match. So SmackDown was clearly superior in that year anyway. I don't think Raw won decisively. They did last year, but they specifically said going into this year's installment that Raw was up 2-0 over SmackDown. Then they go so far as to have Raw fucking crush SmackDown. Just a clean sweep, except for the kickoff, which apparently doesn't matter. If it happened on the kickoff show, it didn't matter. It doesn't count. It doesn't matter. Apparently, according to WWE's logic, but whatever. Doesn't exactly line up with what they've said in the past, but when it comes to kickoff shows, but whatever. With SmackDown, I don't know. I really don't. I thought overall the show was good. It had a lot of good matches in the second half. I thought the men's tag team elimination match was entertaining enough. But I thought the real two best matches of the show, 3 matches really. Ali and Murphy, Rousey and Charlotte, and then Bryan and Lesnar were all great matches. All at least 4-star matches, if we're talking star ratings here. You can't really call that a bad show because you have 3 great matches, and the other matches weren't atrocious. They weren't great, but they weren't terrible either. They were at least decent to good. So I thought it was a pretty good show. Just the booking, the idea of having SmackDown lose every fucking match, for the most part, against Raw is just stupid to me. And again, it would have made sense. It's like, okay, we'll see where it goes. Like, give it time. Maybe it'll lead to something big on Tuesday. Maybe they bring in fucking CM Punk to reboot SmackDown. Who knows? Nothing happened. SmackDown on Tuesday sucked. It was not a good show. It was not a good show at all. They fucking wasted time with all this dumb bullshit with Charlotte versus the Iconics, and what else did they even do on Tuesday? I mean, Orton and Mysterio had a pretty good match in the main event. Daniel Bryan cut a great promo and explaining his actions as to why he turned heel. Everything else in the show just felt completely missable. Mandy Rose and Sonya versus Asuka and Naomi. Who gives a shit? Who fucking cares? So they did nothing to make you think that SmackDown was being either repackaged or bouncing back on Tuesday. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They had a fucking Thanksgiving feast fight instead. And again, if you want to focus on the holiday bullshit, that's not an excuse. The pay-per-view was 2 days ago. You need a strong follow-up show to make people care about SmackDown again, because right now they look like such losers compared to Raw. I mean, they already did anyway, because I don't think we've had a SmackDown main event in the main event of a WWE pay-per-view in a long-ass time, at least when the brands are together on a certain show. Like, when it's a co-branded show, SmackDown or the WWE Championship, I don't think has ever headlined a WWE show. Whenever Raw's on the card, too, SmackDown has never taken top billing, ever, since the brand split was brought back in 2016, which is pretty bullshit, because there's been a lot of bad Raw main events on those pay-per-views, yet SmackDown always gets second straw, or always gets fucking second fiddle, whatever. Is always playing, just always in the backseat compared to whatever's going on with Raw, and it has to be the main event because it's so much more important. It's really not. Whatever's going on with Raw does not always need to be the main event. If they really want to position the shows as equals, then they'll have SmackDown take the main event slot every now and again. But they don't see it that way. Even though SmackDown is a much better show. There is no doubt about that. I'm not saying SmackDown is great every single week. I just got done talking about SmackDown on Tuesday sucked. It sucked. But it was still better than Raw. Much better than Raw. Raw was fucking abysmal on Monday. It has been for months. SmackDown, by and large, since the second brand extension, back in 2016, has almost always been the better show. Except for a time like last year when Jinder was champion. May we not speak of those dark times. Beyond that, though, SmackDown has always been the better show. Yet they will never say as such, nor will they ever consider it such. Just because Raw will always be their baby. It'll always be the flagship show. It'll always be the A show in their opinion, which is fucking bullshit. Would you consider NXT Takeover Wargames 2 to be the pay-per-view of the year in your opinion, considering the fact that a lot of the critics praise this show as an almost perfect show? Do you see any contenders for match of the year from NXT Takeover Wargames 2 as well? I saw some people saying that it was the pay-per-view of the year, which I gotta disagree. I loved Wargames. I thought overall it was a great show. It was not the takeover of the year. I saw some people saying, the greatest takeover of all time. I'm not going to dispute that because A, it's all subjective, and B, every takeover is the greatest takeover of all time. People were saying that about Brooklyn 4. People were saying that about Chicago. They were saying that about Philly. They were saying that about Wargames last year, which I would agree with. I thought this show, as great as takeover was this year, I thought takeover last year was maybe a bit better, just by a smidge. I don't know. It's really, again, it's all subjective. It really is all subjective. To me, the real pay-per-view of the year was nothing that WWE produced. I mean, obviously, NXT is a WWE-based promotion, but I'm not talking about the main roster here. There was no one pay-per-view this year that I would say, holy shit, that was a great-ass show. Not a single one, except for maybe Evolution. That would be in the running for pay-per-view of the year, in my opinion. Maybe Survivor Series, but it still was not a great show. It dragged at many, many points. There were a few matches I did not give two shits about. It would have to be a takeover. It would not be War Games, though. War Games was great, and you said, I'll answer the second part of your question first. Any matches from that show that I would consider to be match of the year contenders? Well, two, obviously. Dream and Ciampa for the NXT Championship. And then, in what I would call the best match I've seen all week. Again, it's really apples to oranges. It's really whatever you prefer. I would say Johnny Gargano versus Aleister Black. That was my favorite match from the weekend. I thought that was a kick-ass match. And one of the best matches I've seen all year from not only NXT, but WWE too. So those two would easily be in the running for match of the year. I would, again, if I had to pick between the two, I would say Gargano and Black because they had the better story. Ciampa and Dream, it had a good story going in, but the build-up wasn't really there. Gargano and Black had just a way better story. The storytelling was on point. The in-ring action was every bit as good as Dream and Ciampa. They just had a much better feud going in, and that does count for something. Because Black and Dream had an awesome feud going into War Games last year, and it made their match all that more meaningful and all that more entertaining and exciting. So the build absolutely plays a part. Anyway, though, so those two matches I would put in the running for match of the year for WWE. There's a lot of other takeover matches I would include as well, but to me, the real pay-per-view of the year, and again, this is purely my opinion, and I wasn't even at this takeover. I've been to 3 takeovers this year. There were 5 takeovers. I went to 3 of them. I went to 3 takeovers. I've been to, I think, 6 now? I went to 3 this year. I was at Philly in January. I was at Chicago in June. And I was at Brooklyn just a few short months ago in August. So I went to all 3 of those shows. I was not at New Orleans. I was not at Saturday's show in Los Angeles. War Games, whatever. So I was at those 3 shows. I went to Brooklyn 2 years ago in 2016. I was in Orlando last year over WrestleMania 33 weekend. And then in 2015, I was at Brooklyn 1. So yeah, I've been to 6 takeovers, I believe, which is quite a bit, and they were all amazing. But to me, the real pay-per-view of the year was not even a show that I was at, but Takeover New Orleans. I thought that was the perfect show, to be honest with you. That also had 2 amazing matches that were even better than what I saw on Saturday. That being Gargano and Ciampa in the main event, that unsanctioned match, which was epic. And then the ladder match to crown the inaugural NXT North American Champion. Another absolutely incredible match. And the rest of the card was great too. Not a bad match in that entire show. Like, with War Games, I can't call it a perfect show, and Baszler Insane was a 2 out of 3 falls match, but it was fucking 10 minutes. That pissed me off. Too much interference. I was not a fan of the match. Easily their weakest encounter to date. It was very entertaining, but easily the weakest match they've had to date, so whatever. I can't call that a perfect show. Takeovers had much better cards overall than what I saw on Saturday, even though that was a terrific takeover, which is why I was surprised when people are calling it the greatest of all time. New Orleans was better. New Orleans had that 5-star ladder match, that 5-star main event with Gargano and Black. It had Baszler beating Ember Moon to become the NXT Women's Champion, which was a great match, and a title change, which was cool. The 3-way tag team title match between Undisputed Era, I think Authors of Pain, and then Pete Dunne and Roderick Strong, where Roddy turned heel, Undisputed Era went over, the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic winners. It was a great moment, very fun match. And then Aleister Black and Andrade Cien Almas, which was also an incredible match for the NXT Championship, where the title changed hands. So again, great show. That was the best takeover in my opinion. We also saw, did anyone show up in the crowd that night? I don't think so. I think it was Chicago, someone showed up, Philly, someone showed up, in Brooklyn. Of course, the shows I was fucking at, but anyway, yeah, so I just thought overall that was a tremendous takeover. The best one they've ever done. That, to me, would be the pay-per-view of the year for WWE at this point. I mean, obviously TLC hasn't happened yet. I don't think a show being headlined by Braun Strowman and Baron Corbin is going to be considered in the running for match, or rather pay-per-view of the year. So as of right now, I would say Takeover War Games, bearing a miracle with TLC next month. His next question: I can't wait to meet Xavier Woods right here in Malaysia in a few weeks, so I was wondering of a hypothetical situation where you and Xavier Woods are having a fun video game session. What one game that you are an expert at would you love to play competition-wise with Up, Up, Down, Down? Such an easy question here. It would easily be Smackdown vs. Raw 2007 General Manager mode. And I know he's good at it because I know they've been playing GM mode and Up, Up, Down, Down. I have not been following it, but I see all the videos. Him and Tyler Breeze, Woods and Breeze, have been doing the GM mode in SVR 06. And that was a good game too. 07 just has a way better roster. They have it for 3 games, 06, 07, and 08. 08 was good, but you have ECW in there, and it's kind of like all fucked up, and the roster's not nearly as good. You have CM Punk in the game, but beyond that, I thought 07 really was like was really the best of all 3 games. 06 had a great roster too. You have Christian, you have, I think, Chris Jericho in that game too, if I'm not mistaken. Big Show, who Big Show's in 07. There was another guy that was in 06 that wasn't in 07, but 07 still had Kurt Angle, a lot of great talent. Umaga's in that game, like a lot of people that you would not think would be in the game, but they are, which is pretty fucking cool, considering when it came out in late 2006. But yeah, SVR07, absolutely amazing game, an even better GM mode, and I would whip their asses all fucking day on SVR07 GM mode. I have had so much experience. You can ask at JNap Rings Rap on the Twitter machine, my friend John Knapp. He knows as good as anyone that both of us are the fucking masters of GM mode in SVR07. We've had a non-stop session of that game, a continuous streak of GM mode and SVR07 since like 2011. And nothing's going to stop us. That's 7 years ago, 7.5 years ago. So ain't nothing stopping us now, baby. So I will easily take on Woods any day, anytime in SVR07 GM mode and fucking beat his ass all day and night. Next question from Matt Reborn again from the Twitter machine. John, his question was, does WWE Creative, aka Vince McMahon, enjoy calling people up from NXT just to treat them like shit, or is that just me seeing it that way, i.e. the Iconics, Andrade Sin Almas, Sanity, etc.? Almas doesn't nearly have it as bad, in my opinion, as the other two people you mentioned. He has not been used great. The guy fucking loses all the time. He lost to Rey Mysterio a couple weeks ago. He lost to Jeff Hardy. He's lost to Daniel Bryan, loses to AJ Styles. Almas is the king of looking great in defeat, but never winning when it matters most. Really just winning at all, period. The guy's just a fucking loser. But at least he goes in there and has great matches. So he's being used a bit better than the other ones. Sanity, aside from Survivor Series, I have not seen on TV, aside from when they introduced Nikki Cross a few weeks ago. I had not seen them on TV in fucking months. What was even the point of calling them up? What was even the point? The Iconics are awful. I am sorry. Maybe they were just a bit better off in NXT because they weren't on TV as much, or they weren't given as much mic time. They are so annoying, but like in the worst way possible. Not in a way where they elicit heat from me, but in a way where like, holy fuck, they are so annoying, and their matches aren't ever any good. And they had good matches in NXT, at least Peyton Royce did. They went for the NXT Women's Championship a few times. They look good in defeat. On SmackDown, they have been positioned as glorified fucking losers. I can't remember the last match either woman won. So, yeah, they're losers. I don't know if Vince just enjoys calling people up just to see him buried. I'm not exactly sure. I really don't know. I think Triple H might give him like a nod, like, hey, we don't really need this person anymore. It's time for them to go up. Maybe give him a look. Maybe that's why they take people like, I think Almas he was already high on. Because otherwise, why would you explain Almas? How can you explain Almas being the Royal Rumble match for 30 minutes? Vince was easily already high on Almas. Sanity, I'm sure he could get two shits about them. The Iconics, same thing with them. They just need more people to fill out the roster. But the thing is, Sanity's not even on TV. It's not even like they're on TV losing all the time. They're just not even on fucking TV. So they don't see what makes these people stars. I mean, maybe part of him enjoys taking people from NXT that people really, really cared about and then just fucking ruining them because what better stuff does he have to do? I don't know. Because he wants to prove to Triple H, like, hey, look at these people that you built up so strongly. Like, no one cares about them. Ha ha ha, I was right all along. Like, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you book them like losers, people will see them as fucking losers. What a concept. Yeah, NXT does tend to, it does have a tendency to take people who probably should not be main event stars and make them out to be way better than they actually are, like a Bo Dallas or something. And then they obviously just flounder on the main roster. But, I mean, it's different with people like, Sanity. I thought they could be a real good group. Or Almas is an absolute star. Or Ember Moon. They're treating her like shit recently on Raw, which is absolute bullshit. So, I'm sure part of him either doesn't know what to do with this talent. Or another part of him is like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know what to do with any of these people, and I just don't care. I just really don't care to see them succeed. So, I'm just going to treat them like shit. I'm just going to book them like shit. His second question, what is more likely to happen at WrestleMania 35? Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey? Or the 4 Horsewomen versus the 4 Horsewomen? That's a great question. I'm going to say the latter, actually. That might be a bit of a surprise for an answer, but I'm going to say the latter match. That being 4 Horsewomen versus 4 Horsewomen. I don't see them doing the 3-way with Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda. It does make storyline sense. I don't want to see a triple threat. I really don't. I'm done with the triple threats. I'm done with the fucking fatal 4-ways. We had 2 singles matches for both women's championships this year, which I thought was great. Jackson and Alexa Bliss, not exactly the best match, but at least it was a singles match, which I appreciated. Charlotte and Asuka had a great singles match for the SmackDown Women's Championship. We need more of that at WrestleMania. Ronda Rousey should not be in a fucking triple threat at WrestleMania. What a waste. I love Charlotte and I love Becky. You don't need them in a three-way. It should be Becky and Ronda and Charlotte, and I think it was Solid Monster who pitched this, but Charlotte and Asuka. And with Asuka as the babyface. Maybe, okay, so you take the championship off of Becky. Okay, she gets stripped. She wins the Rumble. I think this was his scenario. Becky wins the Rumble by lastly eliminating Nia Jax. She goes on to WrestleMania, faces Ronda Rousey for the Raw Women's Championship. And then Charlotte is, she regained the SmackDown Women's Championship in the meantime. She faces Asuka in a rematch from last year's WrestleMania, which they have not had a rematch since. So Asuka beating Charlotte would be a big deal. Maybe you start to rebuild her up. So I like that idea a lot better than just throwing them all into one match. I feel like that would be a massive waste. The 4 Horsewomen versus 4 Horsewomen match, again, I would rather see them in singles matches. I really don't want to see. That's not a WrestleMania caliber match. It's a big match. I don't think a majority of people really care to see that match enough for it to warrant it being at WrestleMania. Like, it could be at SummerSlam or another pay-per-view. WrestleMania, they should be in singles matches. Even Becky and Bayley and Banks can be going for the women's tag team championships on that show. So, whatever. But yeah, the 4 Horsewomen versus 4 Horsewomen thing is only inevitable. I would do it either before WrestleMania, probably after WrestleMania, to be honest. Maybe they can hold off on Baszler coming up until after Mania, and then she can debut on the Raw after Mania, and then that's how you kind of set up that feud, and that's fine. But yeah, for right now, I'd rather see Rousey and Becky one-on-one. But between your two choices, I would definitely take the tag team match. The three-way, neither are great choices. I'd rather see Becky and Ronda one-on-one. But the 4 Horsewomen thing, at least you get everyone in there. I don't want to see just... If it's not going to be Becky and Ronda, you just throw everyone else in there. I don't want another triple threat. I mean, I wish the championships were being defended at WrestleMania, but whatever. At least it's a big match. So if I had to choose, definitely the latter. But again, in a perfect world, I would have it be Becky and Ronda one-on-one, and then Charlotte and Asuka for the SmackDown Women's Championship one-on-one as well. His third question, is there any chance WWE cleans house and releases a bunch of talents by early next year or right after WrestleMania? If so, who do you think will be released and why? I kind of go through these questions a lot every so often. Like, do you think we're in for a new cleaning period, a new spring cleaning, whatever? Who's going to get released? We have not seen one of those periods for WWE in a while. I cannot remember the last time where they released 5 or 6 people at once. And they probably should. There's a lot of people that probably need to be. I don't want to see anyone lose their jobs. I mean, I've said this every single time. But there's a lot of people that don't either use or just don't belong in the roster. So who do I think, if they were to do that, I don't think they will. I don't think they will cut a bunch of people. They're going to have to eventually because they bring in so many people for NXT and they call up so many people. There's a lot of people they never even use and would probably benefit from being elsewhere, like in other companies and shit. But anyway, hypothetically, I don't think they're going to hold a firing period. I really don't think they're going to fire a bunch of people. But let's say if they did. If they did, who would I get rid of? Who do I think they would fire? The Clones should be first on their list. Maybe they forgot they were still employed because they're never on SmackDown, but their appearance at Survivor Series should serve as a reminder that yes, they're still on the payroll, they're still on the roster, let's get rid of these guys. They serve absolutely no purpose. I don't care if they're good in the ring or not. These guys have been around for fucking 7 years and have done diddly shit. It's time to move on and make room for more tag teams that are way better than these guys, who no one could give 2 fucks over. Dana Brooke, I know she posted an emoji on her Twitter of a broken heart the other day. People thought that she got released. Maybe that is the case. I don't think it is. Even still, though, she's not that good. I don't care if she can go in the ring or not, or if she's a good character. She is just beyond the point of helping at this point. She just has no potential whatsoever. I would have released Tamina, too. I mean, at least they're doing something with her right now. Dana Brooke is never on TV. I'd get rid of her ass in a heartbeat. She's really not that good. She's gotten better, but there's just no point in keeping her around. Alicia Fox, they use her as an ambassador. I would get rid of her, too. She sucks. I don't know how she's lasted this long, but she sucks. Tamina, same thing, but they're doing something with her right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if they don't fire her. Mike Kanellis, I love Mike Kanellis, but the guy's barely ever on TV. They just recently moved him to 205 Live. Maybe that was a last-ditch effort because he's just barely been on TV in the past year. Maybe they're just keeping him around for Maria. They're not going to fire Mike and keep Maria. It's a package deal. But is Maria really that valuable to keep around? She is great as a manager, but we've barely seen that on 205 Live. We never saw that on Raw or SmackDown. They'd probably be better off going back to Ring of Honor. So, them. Sin Cara, another guy I completely forgot was on the roster. How is he still around? They use this guy for like fucking international tours or something? Like, he's never on SmackDown. No one fucking cares about him. He has not served a purpose in like 6 or 7 years. Get rid of the guy. I don't want to see this guy get released, but Shelton Benjamin is another one who's never on SmackDown. Why even bother bringing him back? I love Shelton Benjamin. He's on SmackDown. He's never on the show. I think he had a match with Daniel Bryan a couple months ago, and he beat Daniel Bryan, and then we never saw him again. What a fucking waste. So why even bother? He's another guy that would be probably better off. I know he's older now, but maybe going back to Ring of Honor or Japan or something, which is where he was before coming back to WWE. If you're going to have the guy, might as well use him. He's never on the show. He is never on SmackDown. So just get rid of him. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, thoughts on the idea of pairing Lars Sullivan up with Daniel Bryan as his muscle? That's a good idea. I don't hate that idea. I've seen a few other ideas like putting Lars with Braun. I don't like that idea at all. I really don't. Just because I think he would get overshadowed way too quickly. But also, honestly, I would just build him up on it as his own entity. I would not put him with anyone. I think Sullivan could be his own monster. He doesn't need to be a heavy for anyone. I think he's just way better off on his own. Sullivan should be coming in on SmackDown, not Raw, SmackDown, and squashing the likes of, I think, Jeff Hardy, Rey Mysterio. People have said, like, the Solid Monster, pitch those guys because they're smaller and it would mean more. I completely agree. Jeff Hardy isn't doing shit anyway, so why not put Sullivan with Hardy? Rey Mysterio's busy with Orton at the moment, so Sullivan and Hardy make sense to me. On Raw, who the fuck are you going to put him with? Raw needs more heels. They might actually have enough heels, but they have Bobby Lashley. They already have Baron Corbin. They have Braun on the face side. They have enough dominant people. They don't need Lars Sullivan on Raw. So I like him on SmackDown. The Daniel Bryan idea I like too. I think Bryan is better off on his own as a heel, and Sullivan too. I think they're both better off alone than they are together. But I would not hate the idea if they did end up going in that direction. Final question from at the _ Durbinator, one half of the awesome show that John and the Durbinator put on every single week on the YouTube channel. The Real Honesty with John Ritlin and the Durbinator. Check them out on YouTube. They have great content. Anyway, his question was, in your opinion, what would be a better fit for the women's division? A mid-card title or tag team titles? So I'm sure you and John are on the same page with this because John asked me the same question or similar questions in recent weeks that if I'm not high on one, if I'm high on this one. So I don't really like the idea of more championships for the women. It's not because I don't like the women's division. I don't want to hear fucking people say, you're misogynist or whatever. It's not that at all. It's just that they don't treat the women that they have with the respect they deserve, so why would giving them a championship change anything? It's not. Just because if you throw a pair of titles on the line with Asuka and Naomi versus Mandy and Sonya, it's not going to change anything. It won't. I won't give a shit about the championships either, in addition to the people involved. So I don't like either idea. A mid-card title would be a better idea, but it would have to be between two brands. I think a mid-card title might work. Another title might work because Ronda Rousey is not letting go of that Raw Women's Championship. So what the fuck do you do with people like Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Ember Moon? You have them go for another belt. I think the tag team titles would get old real quick. Even if you had them, float between the two brands, I don't like that idea. I really don't. I know they're going to do it anyway, so I'm not like, they're going to do it, so it doesn't really matter what I say. But I just don't like that idea. I really don't, because how many times can I see the Iconics versus Nia Jax and Tamina? Or how many times can I see Banks and Bayley versus Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville? Who fucking cares? Who gives a shit? The women would be much better used if they weren't involved in meaningless tag team matches every week, and they were actually positioned as their own stars. If you did that and broke everyone up as single stars, then yes, a mid-card title would work. But the tag team titles with the tag team division, it's not really a division. You don't have enough women to do a tag team division. The men's division isn't really that much better. They had 12 teams, and none of them mean anything for the most part. So the women would not be that much better. But if I had to choose between the two, I would do neither, but at least right now. Because if done right, it could work. The issue is that this company does not know how to book a women's division and make people that are outside of the title picture mean anything. But again, if I had to choose, I'd probably go with the mid-card championship for the women. And that does it, guys, for hashtag AskGSM here. Today, episode 260 for November 21st, 2018, the Thanksgiving Eve edition. Thank you guys, as always, for checking out the show. If you want to send in a question, tweet me on the Twitter machine, at WrestleRant on Twitter, with the hashtag AskGSM. That being said, you can also find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Leave a post, or leave a comment rather, on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. Last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, have an awesome rest of your week. Have an awesome Thanksgiving on Thursday. We'll be back next Wednesday with another all-new edition of #AskGSM. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your turkey ass down the road.